the good folks represented by your organization, and be able to share our concerns and hear yours, and we're grateful for this opportunity. So this is an interesting year, to say the least. The virus has kind of thrown things into a little bit of turmoil, and this time of year, we're trying to figure out, let the dust settle and figure out what the legislature did to us. This year we haven't had that opportunity yet. We're just trying to keep projects moving forward and not have them shut down for health reasons or other reasons, and just keep things moving forward. This year with the legislature, there wasn't a lot of changes or a lot of big movement or changes this year. They did fund a lot of projects for us if we were able to keep the funding for those. And then I spent a good portion of this year's session trying to get a complete statute rewrite for DFCM and the State Building Board through the legislature, which was successful. So that's just getting that done, and projects was really our emphasis for this year. That turned out to be plenty. But if there's any questions anybody has particularly to the legislative session, let me know. This year for projects, typically we would provide a list of projects and assignments for project managers. We are not able to do that. We put this meeting off a few times because of not having answers from the legislature, and I apologize for that. We still don't have answers. We've been given directive by both the governor's office and from the legislature not to spend any unnecessary funding at this time. So there is a hold on project funding, that anything that is not critical and that is not necessary at this point. I will kind of give you a little bit of overview, just our current backlog of projects to show you they've been pretty generous to us over the last several years. We currently have 504 projects and $3.5 billion worth of work that we're working on in one aspect or another. This year, for capital improvement projects, they funded another 300 projects at $150 million. And then we had 11 development projects that came up to just under $600 million that are state funded. And then we have 4 non-state funded projects, development projects, that were just about $200 million even. So all in all, they gave us just under $1 billion in new work this year. We are waiting to see what impact there will be with the slowing of the economy and moving taxes. Taxes coming in on June 15th instead of April 15th is pretty difficult as our fiscal year ends on June 1st. So to keep projects moving, right now we're holding money that I projected we would need to keep projects going, and then basically all other dollars that DFCM has in our capital projects fund are basically on hold and available for whatever needs the state would have. So it's kind of a strange time for us, and like I say, we're just trying to keep our projects that we have going, moving forward without any slowdown, and hope that there'll be minimal impact to our projects coming forward. One of the things that we're working on that will hopefully help there be less impact to new projects is we've been receiving cash on the prison project, and I still have $350 million in bonding authorization. So we are letting that right now, going through the process to sell bonds, and then that will replace cash, and that will free up cash the legislature has available. And then they're also looking at, you probably read in the paper, at every state agency to cut budgets across the way. That may have an impact to us on employees. Probably not so much the employees that we have right now, but we have open positions that we may not be able to fill, which may cause a little bit of a hardship to us going forward on projects. and on our maintenance side of the house as well. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions on what I've talked about so far. That's kind of the update from the session in a nutshell.
We do have a few questions posted. What is the status for AE selection for projects funded in the 2020 legislation session?
Yeah, that's a good question. We would probably, we're going to try to move forward with our projects as far as selecting designers and getting that and getting that going. That doesn't, we don't have to commit to funding to get through the process. So we're probably going to continue working through that in hopes to not slow projects down too much, if that answers the question.
Okay.
Capital improvements, though, right now I haven't released, they've only released a few capital improvement projects that were just absolutely critical to start selection for design. So the 300 projects there, right now it's having a large impact. You've probably read that there's a special session called for May 15th and for June 15th. Those are strategically after revenue updates. I know they got their new revenue projections and updates this week, and then there'll be a special session next week and they'll react to that. I'm hoping that, I'm not really optimistic I'll get a lot of answers this next week, but hopefully by June 15th, I'll be able to get some direction and be able to move projects forward. I am hoping, however, though, that this next week they'll let me to some level release the capital improvement projects, because that will be a really big hardship for us and for the community if we're not able to start selecting designers for the projects, capital improvement projects.
Okay. I think that goes with, perhaps a follow-up question here is, how is it decided which projects are critical and which are not?
Right now, it's just life safety issues, or those are the only projects that we've released so far. We are looking at a few other projects that are time sensitive, seasonal projects, to look at moving forward to select designers on the projects, and some of them already have it. We have projects that we started early design, and we're just having to wait for those projects to get the word, and then we can move into construction.
Okay. Do you have another question, or a couple more questions come in? Has the DFCM seen any changes in construction cost, material availability, or labor in this quarter?
Is that, can I ask a follow-up question? Is that just for the COVID-19, or is that just in general for this year? Should I answer it both ways?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's just say, taking the virus out of the epidemic, or out of the equation, we have seen some softening on projects, development projects and capital improvement projects that are, I would say, mid-range projects for us, in the under $60 million range. I think that the subcontractors that respond to the projects that are in that range, 60 million and under, they're probably experiencing a little more softening in that market, and there's a little more availability. We are still struggling if we're off the Wasatch Front, no matter what the project is. It's really volatile on bidding. Let's see, as far as the virus goes right now, we've seen the prices all over the place right now. Nothing's coming in the last few months really low. but we're seeing some subcontractors that are just almost doubling the price in some aspects, especially if they're off the Wasatch Front. I think this is just a reaction to the virus and being able to have employees to respond and so forth. So we're actually looking at some projects rebidding in the fall.
Okay. And this one falls in line with a follow-up to that is there a published list of projects that will or will not be funded moving forward? And if a project is already somewhere in the procurement process, will it still be moving forward, or do you see awarded projects being rescinded?
I'm fighting really hard to keep funded projects going forward. That would be the last resort, and I don't think that will have an impact of projects that are already funded. And so we're trying to keep moving forward on those. Yeah, I think they'll probably be all right. But new projects, that's another question. But the one thing that I'm doing to try to keep I alluded to this a little bit, to try to keep the existing projects moving forward and not losing any funding. Certainly there's a hardship to the state when the federal government moved the tax filing date from April 15th to July 15th. That has an impact on the revenue that the state receives, and that creates a little bit of a hardship, and that right there puts, along with the reduced income and revenue from sales tax and so forth, that puts a hardship on the state in current dollars. So that puts existing projects at risk. But what we've tried to do to mitigate that is take any excess revenue that we have on projects that wouldn't be spent by the end of August or by August timeframe, and make those dollars available, and then hold back on all the funding that we need to keep projects moving through August, in the understanding that that money would be replaced after July 15th. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I have a follow-up question on the capital improvement. Is this the capital improvement projects? Are those, or is that the funding that was assigned or given or going to be given to the universities and higher education institutions, as that I believe it's SB 201 from the 2019 session, and it was supposed to be funded in July of this year?
No, that was SB 102 from last year. The capital improvement projects they're kind of the bread and butter, I think, for the design and construction industry in the state. They are projects that are improvements or modifications to typically existing buildings, and they're generally $3.5 million or under in total project cost. Mm-hmm. And there's about 330 of those each year that we do. University of Utah and Utah State have delegation to do their own capital improvement projects. And then we cover the bulk of them for everybody else. That fund that you're talking about did receive funding. It did receive, if it stays, $27 million into that fund this year, which was less than half of an appropriation for that.
Okay. Okay. That answers all the questions that are typed up so far. If you'd like to move on to your next topic, Jim.
Okay. I have some things in my notepad. I don't have the email that I sent you, but we've had, I'll just talk about some things that we're working on internally. They don't have anything to do with the legislature, but there are things that we're trying to get resolved right now. We had a good meeting with a group from the AIA a few months ago, just before the epidemic, and we are looking at a revision to our AE fee schedule. A few years ago, when we went to the new fee schedule, we had the CSI, the Customer Satisfaction Incentive, and that was basically 1% of the fee that was being held back based on performance. After we had implemented that for a while, we found that that was very complicated for our people to manage, and it caused a lot of angst and issues for the design community as well, and particularly probably how that would be shared among architects and engineers, or Prime and their consultants. And so we took a vote really with the group that was working on our fee structure, and we were at the Larry Miller campus at Salt Lake Community College a few years ago, and I said, well, you know, if you want to pull that out, then that would reduce the fee, that would reduce that incentive, and I don't think that really settled in. So we did pull that incentive out, and we did reduce the fee 1%, and that's caused quite a problem. And on our end, you know, we've been really struggling to negotiate fees as far as folks wanting additional complexities or consultants, and we've determined that's in basically in relation to that 1% of the fee being, or actually 10% of the fee being reduced. And so we are looking at restoring that to the fee schedule, but we don't want to just add fee to the schedule. We want to, we're trying to find a way, and we need to work with your community as well to structure it in a way that we don't have such difficult negotiations. When we went to our new fee structure, for AE fee structure, we were hoping that it would be pretty clear, and we would get out of the negotiation process, and it wouldn't be so difficult, but that's not been the case. So we do want to increase the fee schedule back to what it should be, but we also want to have more input and make it so that it's more easy for us to manage and not as controversial. So we are working with AIA on that, and any others that would like to participate, if ACEC or the engineering group would like to participate, that's great as well. Any questions on that? Doesn't look like it.
I don't think so. Would they just reach out to you directly if they would like to be involved, or do you have a committee formed?
If it's an architect, I think they could reach out to the government affairs or Heather Wilson and participate that way. If there are engineers that would like to participate, if ACEC doesn't want to participate in that, then I would say reach out to me directly.
Okay.
Or to Matt, either one.
Okay.
Myself or Matt Boyer.
Okay, great. Looks like we have a direct question on a project. Do you know the status of the University of Utah Applied Science building?
Yeah, so it's one of the projects that was funded this year. So it's in this group where we're kind of it's we're not sure how that funding will be affected. That project, as well as the Salt Lake Community College project, were funded a little differently. They gave us the full funding for the projects, but then they put a restriction on us to not be able to move into construction until July of 2021, July 1st of 2021. So we are looking at continuing forward on those two projects. The Salt Lake Community College Harriman campus already has a design team on board, and we'll continue through designing there. And we'll be working on the applied science at University of Utah to get that going. Like I said, we want to try to get the selections for the projects out, and unless we're told that they're canceled completely.
Okay. Do you
Matt Boyer is in now, Heidi, for a
okay.
few minutes.
Matt, did I unmute you?
I don't know if you can find him.
You did.
Yay. Okay, great. Oh, thanks everybody for bearing with me on my first Zoom webinar. Appreciate it. Matt, welcome to the webinar. We've covered a little bit of when funding, at the changes in funding and maybe the pause in funding due to several conditions. First, this virus and pandemic. Second, that the tax due date was moved, which changes, well, it really impacts our fiscal year as the state. Jim also shared that bonds that are being sold for the prison, which that's a big impact on the state funding, and then also the funding for the higher ed and technical colleges, where they receive $27 million likely for their projects. Do you have additional? Let's see. I do have some additional questions, Jim, but Matt, are there some specific topics that you would like to cover since we have you for a few moments?
Not necessarily, just whatever the group would like to hear from. I think that's probably should be our focus at this point.
Okay. There's a question asked, are you considering revisiting the delegated design policy?
Yeah, you want to cover that, Matt?
Yeah, I can cover that for a bit. So we have been revisiting that. We've been working through it. I think it will continue to be a work in progress. We just barely republished the latest revision earlier this week. I think it was either yesterday or on Tuesday. But you can find that on our website, where we have taken and allowed 5 items for deferred submittals that are typically that you wouldn't have to get approval for in order to be able to accomplish that, or to go through that process to get a variance for that. And just to kind of help everyone understand what the intent of the policy is the intent is really to make sure that as these delegated designs or deferred submittals come in, that we're still having the design team take a look at those and see how they coordinate with the rest of the building and the other components that those different systems or various systems may interact with. And so the policy is really, the policy and the intent of the policy is really to help make sure that we don't have design happening in a silo, and that the overall design is being considering as we're looking at those deferred submittals. I know there's been a lot of confusion as that's gone out, and a lot of consternation in regards to that. Like I said, we'll continue to kind of monitor that and see how we want to best move forward with that. But hopefully, as you review the policy and see what we have on there, that'll really help. And we're always open to more suggestions if there's a way to help improve the system or the policy that we have out there to make the process smoother for everyone. We're always open to that kind of feedback and looking for ways that we can make it better for everyone in the end game.
Okay.
I would add to what Matt's saying and say this time, if you felt a lot of angst and that over it, that was absolutely intended. This was kind of a shot across the bow where we said no. We put out policy, said we do not accept deferred submittal delegated design. But then if you read down farther, we gave you a process to actually accept them. But it was intended to really get attention. They were getting out of control, and we need to get our arms around that. And like Max said, just one example would be that we're having a huge issue on quite a few buildings that we own, and that is exterior building skin, where you might have metal panels and stone and precast stone and brick or rock, and they're being engineered in silos and nobody's owning them, and those systems are not performing well together. And so it's causing us to have to go back and repair a building time after time because that full design is not being owned by anybody. So we really are saying that we want the engineer and architect of record to own the design, and we want them to coordinate it, and we want it to be done in a way that makes sense for each project. And if it's a better product to have us pay our structural engineer to design it rather than to pay a subcontractor's structural to design it, then that's the way we want to go. But this needs to be a team, project by project decision on how we push forward. And then there's simply just some of the systems that we just don't understand why they need to be a delegated design, like light gauge studs and so forth. And when that does happen, then there's no engineering, and we have concerns that when the end users are hanging things from the walls, whether it's even designed to be able to manage that.
Okay, that's great. And just a reminder to the attendees, if you have questions, please post them in the question and answer tab and we'll get them going. Jim, I also have topics for today. We're going to talk about the CMGC process and contract revisions.
Yeah, you want to take that, Matt? See, you got here just in time.
We got it.
Yeah, so I can talk about that a little bit. We are currently working on our CMGC contract, and we've been part of that process has been working with our PMs and some of the other industry leaders to identify ways in which we can improve the CMGC contract and process in general, so that it benefits not only DFCM, but it benefits the contractors and the design community as well, and trying to find a collective approach moving forward. There have been some gaps that we've identified that we want to address, and we're working with our Attorney Assistant General, Mr. Mike Kelly, for those that know him, to kind of help identify and figure out a way to implement those into the contract. Mike has a lot on his plate, and so it's been a very slow-moving ship in that regard, and he's getting constantly pulled in different directions, and so unfortunately it's not been going as fast as we want in that regards, but it is something that we're working on, and we're constant. Mike's, every waking second he gets, he's either addressing that or the general conditions, trying to get both of those updated. And so the short answer is I don't have a time period for when that will be able to be rolled out, but we are working closely with the Attorney General's office and our CMGC committee we have to kind of move that forward and get those issues resolved.
Okay.
I would just add to that, I think structurally, Matt, we're pretty close there on what we want the contract to be like, to look like, right? But Mike Kelly's been, like Matt said, he's kind of the contracts expert for the Attorney General's office, and with this virus, he's been pulled into a lot of different contracts, emergency contract negotiations, and so it's a little slow, but he is choosing to not rewrite our contract that we have right now, but to recreate it because he doesn't like our contract at all. So it's been a slow process, but we're working through it.
Okay. We do have a request for if you have a link to the policy on delegated design, if that's something that you could share.
I saw that, and I'll post the answer here in just a second.
Okay, thank you.
Matt can do that. He can multitask. I'm an old guy. I can't do that. I'd have to like turn the video off and go find it somehow.
Well, then Jim, can you speak to the next question that was posted? Is can you share or speak to each of the development projects that were funded in turn, and describe which ones are moving forward with AE selection and when?
Let's see. How about we'll tag team this, Matt. I'll go down the list and tell you the project, and I'll name the project, and you can tell them whether we're moving forward with it or not. Right now in design, does that work?
Yeah.
So I've got the list here. Bridgerland, Tech Building.
So Bridgerland right now is still in, it's just finished up with its programming. We are looking, just so everyone knows, that we are looking at putting that out as a design build process or design build delivery method. And so there will be a solicitation that will be hitting the streets here within hopefully tomorrow on Friday or Monday at the latest. But there will be a solicitation for a program specialist that will help do some enhanced programming standards that will kind of help design the design, or will help guide the design build process. And that will be coming out. I don't foresee that process as far as the design build solicitation occurring until closer to the end of June or first part or after July, just as a way of heads up on that one.
SUU academic classroom building.
So that one is currently under design and proceeding. Although I couldn't give you an update as to when that will hit the streets for construction solicitations.
DPS Brigham City, Public Safety, Brigham City Public Safety.
That one is not under design yet. That's one of the ones we've been holding to wait to see how the legislative session turns out.
The new North State Capitol building.
To my knowledge, that one is not under design yet either, and has been wrapping up with some of the programming services for those agencies that will occupy that space later on.
Of course, the Taylorsville State Office building here is in progress. Let's see, USU Global Teaching and Global Learning Center.
That one is not in design yet either.
Yep. U of U Applied Science building.
That one has not been put out for design services either yet.
Salt Lake Community College Harriman campus.
That one is currently under design.
And then I mentioned, Matt, that one in the Applied Science at the U can't go to construction until July of next year.
Correct.
The Utah Department of Corrections offender housing, we're just looking for property on that.
Yeah, no.
St. George is next, right?
Correct.
And then also for the Department of Corrections, a mental health facility. And we're still understanding what that facility will be and where it will be located and finding property for it. And then the non-state funded projects, Matt, U of U Health Sciences campus office building.
That one is currently under design.
U of U Health Sciences garage and roadway improvements.
That one is also under design, and both of those two last projects you mentioned also have contractors already selected, or CMGC contractors selected on them.
The Dixie State Greater Zion Stadium expansion.
I believe that one is, if I'm not mistaken, has been selected for design purposes, and I'm not sure if they've entered into design yet, but I believe either they're through negotiations or they have a contract issued at this point.
That was just for programming, wasn't it?
I'd have to double check. I believe it was.
USU Blanding Professional Career and Technical Education Lab. I don't think we have anything on that yet.
No, we don't.
Okay. That's it for the development projects.
Okay. And a follow-up question to what you've just listed, when will the RFPs for AE selection on, at least the ones where design hasn't started yet, when will they be issued?
Well, Matt, I had said earlier that we were looking at probably moving those selections forward because we don't have to commit a lot of funding for that. And then, you know, I don't know that they're all going to go out right now or whatever, but we probably proceed forward with them. Is that how you see it too?
That's how, yeah, that's what I would think would be in the best interest of the project.
Okay.
And then one thing too, just to add on that DSU West Side Stadium expansion, in my notes I have that the RFP was out. This was a few weeks RFP for A's was out and selection was being made next week off the proposal. So I believe that should be completed by then, or by now.
So it's on the street right now, or probably submittals have been made.
Okay. Very good. We do have another question that's been submitted. The recent proposal submittal process for University of Utah projects was different than what we have seen in the past. Requirements for the submittal were laborious. Has this been reviewed by the DFCM?
It would be helpful to know what project that is, probably, but I might have an idea. Was that a selection that was run by the U or by DFCM?
Yes, by the University of Utah. And it was the office building and the David Eccles School of Business project.
Oh, so that was a feasibility study, planning and all that. Wasn't that put on hold, Matt?
I think they moved forward. If last update I had heard on that one, on the selection for the David Eccles School of Business. I haven't heard on the other one, no.
It was just one project, right? Or was there?
I think she said 2 on there, didn't she?
Yes, it was the Health Sciences office building.
Oh.
And the Eccles School of Business.
So I would say that we know there are issues on those and we're working to resolve that. I don't want to say like publicly what that resolution will be, but we do know that there were issues, particularly on the health science building, the fee that was posted for it. And I don't know, you want to add anything, Matt?
No, that does just go into a conversation. I don't know if you guys hit on the topic or not, that we are reviewing our AE fee policy and where that's currently at, and to see where that should be. We recognize that it's lower than what it has been in previous years. And so we're looking to try and make some corrections there to bring it up to what we feel like would be an appropriate fee amount. Okay.
So Matt, we talked about that a little bit, and I let them know that we're looking for any volunteers that want to contribute in that process, either through the AIA or if the ACEC wants to put together a group to participate. And if not, the engineers could contact you or me directly. Mm-hmm. What about SMPS participating? Yeah, that's fine. And Matt, I did mention that we do want to increase the fee to make it equitable, but we also want to move forward in trying to make it not as difficult to negotiate contracts. Mm-hmm. We want to get that out of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be a fair statement.
Yeah.
And I have a follow-up on, and it does tie in with the U a little bit, though they've addressed this, but including geotech and Alta surveys in the architecture services. Is that still something that is being discussed, or will that continue to be contracted separately?
I think, Jim, if you don't mind, I'll jump in real quick because I got to leave here in just a couple. So from what I think that'll be handled on a project by project basis, depending on what the team would like to do and what they feel like is going to be the most valuable in the coordination of those two services. It'd be hard for me to say that it won't continue to happen, but it'd also be hard for me to say that it will never happen in the future either. Mm-hmm. In our conversations with the project managers, that's kind of what we've emphasized, is that they need to make those delineations as to where there's value in doing that together and where there's not. And we've left that on to their discretion to determine what's in the best interest of the project.
Okay.
I would agree with that. So let me just real quickly, that health science building at the U, we just want to emphasize something that both Matt and I feel very strongly about. That project had a fee that was posted that was too low, but nobody that submitted on that project questioned it, and that is puts us in a really tough spot when we go to negotiate a fee and nobody questioned the low fee. Because if we go back and we adjust that fee, which we cannot do, then we're treating those other people that might have gone after that project unfairly. So we need to make it very, 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 you want to add a few more, Matt? Very clear that if we put something on the RFP and you object to it, you need to raise the question. Mm-hmm. And so I know that I see that. I know that could cause you some fear, and we did talk about that with the AIA group, and we talked about a possible resolution would be to have Heather Wilson call us and let us know of the issue. So it's not any particular company, because there seems to be concern on your part. If you call, you do not need to fear calling Matt or I and saying, hey, there's a problem with an RFP. I want to make that clear too. There would be absolutely no retribution. In fact, we would probably respect the firms that do that a whole lot more. So there are ways to resolve that. I think that, like, Matt, do you have anything to add? I think one of the ways would be having your organizations to reach out to us if they're willing to do that. But you just can't go through proposing on a project that has a fee that's too low and just assume it'll work out later, because that puts us in, you put us in a situation where we're breaking the law basically if we change that fee.
Yeah, the only thing I would probably add to that is the more people we hear from, the more we get a better understanding that it's not just a particular firm. And so I would strongly encourage, if you feel like the fee is too low that is posted on one of those not to exceed fees, please reach out to, like Jim said, either him or myself, and we can have those discussions with the project manager and see if we need to adjust that. If we're only hearing from one firm, there's the opportunity, or there might be the thought process that that fee's too low for that particular firm, and they're willing to proceed based off the project team may be willing to proceed based off of the percentages that have been identified or the amount that has been identified. However, if it's a collective group of people saying, hey, this is too low, that really perks our ears up and brings our interest to taking a hard look and seeing, okay, maybe this is too low for what the market is or for what this project entails, and we need to adjust it accordingly. And with that, I better jump off back into this other training. So it's been nice chatting with everyone. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Sorry, our project managers are going through lean certification, and Matt's participating with them on that training, so he had to go back to that. But he gave you his lunch break, so there you go.
Yeah, we'll take it. Tell him thank you again. We appreciate that. Jim, I do have another note from you, and this may fall in line with the issues with the building envelope we were discussing earlier, but the high performance building standard update.
Sure. We do have a revision in process there to update that. I would say, I don't know if somebody has a particular question, but there is one. There's actually two issues that are kind of we're trying to figure out how to address so that we can move forward and publish that update. One of them would be we're having issues with our air barrier on the roof when we put the air barrier beneath the roofing, which is where it gives us the best value. That causes, when we have roof leaks, that causes water to be trapped above that air barrier and below the roofing material, and we're finding that we're having roofing insulation sitting in water. We're trying to figure out how to mitigate that and whether that's the direction that we want to go. We're trying to work through that on the roofing, and then also on the EUI, a few of the campuses are choosing to go to electrification, and that causes a little bit of a problem right now because of the cost of electricity right now, and so we're looking at a common sense approach to that. We don't want to inhibit in any way folks that are looking forward, but we also want to do what's best in the interest of our buildings as well. So there's two issues there that we're kind of working through. I think we'll find a resolution, and then fairly soon in the next few weeks, I imagine we'll have that out.
Okay. Great.
Was there any specific questions to that standard?
Not yet, but I know Shamini Larson is on the call, so I think that would be of interest to her. But see if they have any questions to post there. I have a general question on, just how the DFCM is, maybe moving forward with virtual, in a virtual world where pre-submittal meetings, perhaps, are you, how has the transition been to conducting and managing the meetings virtually? Do you have any advice for us as architects and engineers to help you facilitate those better?
I haven't had any feedback on how that's working. I would be interested for your group on the participation side. We're still holding some that are in person, but we are having some that are electronic. And in some instances, I've waived the mandatory portion of that, particularly for pre-submittal meetings, not necessarily construction site walks and pre-bid meetings. I think that we'll probably see more of that. We have a particular client that really likes that because they're really pushing for out-of-state vendors to participate. Whether we'll continue to do that or not, I'm not sure. Probably a lot depends on how effective we determine it's been. So any input on that, on how effective it is, or would be helpful.
Okay. I think I'll go ahead and speak for everybody. It was a quick adjustment to go all online, especially after the earthquake. We have found it's been nice that we've just continued, just not in person, and I think it's been good for our teams. I can say that. Jim, on the, let's see. Okay, I'll finish up with high performance building. Shamini did respond. Thanks for letting me pick on you for a minute. She just wanted to make sure that they have the most current goals and interests.
Do I know Miss Larson? Sounds familiar.
She's with Morrison Hirschfield.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Know her.
Yeah, so what's the question?
She just wanted to make sure that they have the most current goals and interests in the DFCM in mind as they're reviewing drawings.
Yeah, I think that's the intent, and I would encourage anybody that has any input there that they feel like is valuable or hasn't been heard to reach out to Sarah Bull and give that directly to her.
Okay, great.
I know she's working with several in the community, not just mechanical, electrical designers, but commissioning agents as well, building envelope and building system.
Okay.
As far as our customers as well,
okay,
agencies and institutions.
Great. There was a question just posted, and I'm going to ask the person who asked this question to specify the project, but their question is, what is the reason to add the construction manager to work on a project that also has a DFCM manager and a design build team? Is this not an overload? But I'm not
Is this
sure.
particularly to a design build?
BATC in Logan.
Bridgerland, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not a program manager. What we've done on design build, and I started doing this several years ago on the nursing home in St. George and Payson. It worked really well. One of the issues with design build, or a few of them that we have, is maintaining quality and getting, making sure that the program is being adhered to, and just quality in general on that project, on those types of projects. So as you know, that the architect of not for DFCM. So what I did on those two projects, and we've been doing it on design build since, is that after the programming is done, and this also allows the programming architect that gives us great service there to compete for the design build. We release that programmer, and then we hire another architect that then reviews the program to make sure that it complies with everything we need, put any additional performance specifications that are necessary there. And then that architect works on our behalf throughout the process, through the selection, to review all of the proposals to see how they compare to the program. And then that person also reviews pay apps and change orders, and conducts periodic like bi-monthly site visits. I'll tell you that I think that everybody involved in the projects where we've done this have thought this is a positive. I can tell you just on the two projects that I'm talking about, the contractor and design firm, the architect that we hired there provided them some valuable input on ways that they could cut some of the things that they had in their program they didn't need, and also and that helped provide some of the things that they had left out that we did need. So it's been pretty good, and we've seen situations where that additional consultant for us has caught things that would have been catastrophic had they not been caught in time. Another weakness I would say is that we probably don't get the same level of oversight and input from our contractor on a design build, and so this augments that as well.
Okay.
The Bridgerland, it was no sell because to the agency there, because Southwest, where we did it, and the Uinta Basin, both those were recent design builds, and the agencies thought that it was a tremendous benefit.
Very good. Okay. Let's see. Hit all the topics here. We had AE fee schedule. Talked about that. General conditions update.
Yeah, so we did do an update to our general conditions a few months back. I think it was in August, and after we put that out, we did actually review the general conditions with quite a few of our partners in the AE community. But after we published it, there were several points that were problematic to some of the contractors and subcontractors. And so we circled back and met with them, and we are working on some revisions. We had several meetings with the contractors and subcontractors, and listened to their issues, and decided that we would fix some and that we would not fix others. And Mike Kelly's been in the process of doing that. He should have that done any day, and we'll repost that. That's just been slowed down as well as the other issues, because he's been pulled in other directions over the last 3 months.
Okay. Okay. I do have one question that was submitted through email, and I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball on this one. Will COVID-19 impact the state building fund for 2020, and how far beyond 2020 is DFCM anticipating the state building funds to be impacted?
You know, that would really take a crystal ball. I think that really just depends on revenue estimates and where the, you know, what this costs the state. I think that they're over preparing, probably, as our state usually does, being very conservative and moving forward, which is good. That's why we're the best run state in the country for so many years running. But I think we're going to be over cautious, but hopefully it won't be a huge impact. But I don't know. I would say that it will probably have more of an impact, possibly to the general fund and less to the education fund. But that's really getting to a crystal ball there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
I think that I would just reiterate something again, and that is that GOMB, or the Governor's Office of Management and Budget, and the legislature, or Legislative Fiscal Analyst's Office, they both see the value in the work that the state provides, like the design and construction industry, and how that benefits our economy. And so they've, always tried to keep things going in that direction. If you remember back in 2008, when everything crashed for a little while, state projects were about the only thing in town for a while, because everything else dried up. And so given history, I would say that it will probably not have a big impact on projects going forward. But like we're saying, that's a crystal ball. That's just my thought. That doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't sign any bills, and I don't create any bills.
Yeah. Well, as one who worked through 2008 and then the second dip in 12, DFCM projects were much appreciated. We certainly, it's tough. There's a lot of need, and certainly with the change in tax base and tax revenue, that will continue to impact what we're able to do as a state. Jim, we've covered all the questions that the group has, and we have reviewed all the topics that we discussed earlier. Do you have some attendees? If you have additional questions, please post them. Otherwise, I'll just have you give your final thoughts, Jim.
I'm just going to end with one thing, and that is that we really appreciate our association with each group. We participate quite often in discussions with this group, and it's helpful to hear from you all, and especially these Q&As, I think, are enlightening to us. We do really like the focus groups, Associated General Contractors, or AGC. We've had really great success on having regular ongoing meetings with that group. We've really struggled with ABC. We've really struggled with AIA. And we've had periodic success with ACEC. They're very supportive of us, but as far as ongoing meetings, it's been a little bit hit and miss. I would just encourage any of those organizations or people that get involved in those that we really like to have those regular, at least quarterly meetings with the groups, so that we can understand your concerns and you can understand why we do what we do. We just appreciate all the great work that each of you do for us. We feel like we are absolutely blessed with our contractors, our subcontractors, our architects, our engineers, You all do a great job for us, and we really appreciate you. And we want to make sure that we're being fair and that we're doing things the right way. So we always appreciate any input that we get. Picking up the phone and or sending an email is never a bad thing. It might. I realize that when you do that, a lot of times it's you do that with a lot of trepidation and that, but at least currently, right now, with our leadership, we appreciate the input, even if you're telling us we're stupid.
Nah. I do have a couple questions that did pop up. The first one is back to the Bridgerland project. Why has that gone to a design build delivery?
Well, because it's worked very well for the tech colleges, and I think it gives competition to those that might not normally get it if it was a CMGC project. We just feel like that gives us, we've been very successful in design build for the tech colleges. This will be the fifth one, I believe we've done that way. We did one CMGC recently, two CMGC, and they've gone okay. They're doing fine, but we really like the design build. We feel like that gives us our best bang for the buck on those projects. Get them moving faster, and they're not, because they don't tend to be as complicated as some of our other projects. They're a better candidate for design build.
I see. Okay. And one last question. Well, perhaps we'll see if one pops up there. So we have a special session in next week in May, and then another one in June. Do you anticipate the capital improvements or funded projects to be posted after either of those, or not till later?
Well, I hope we will post them as soon as we know. Mm-hmm. So I would just say after the special session's over, in a day or two, be watching our website. You can email Matt or myself directly, or CC my assistant, and see if the list's out. I know a lot of you email CC, and if you get select communications that way, that's a great way to find out if it's out, and you don't have to feel like you're bothering anybody. So
okay, that's great.
We do have the list ready, so we just need to find out if we can release the projects. So.
Okay. And I do have a couple more questions coming in. Do you foresee more design build projects in the future over CMGC project delivery?
I'm personally having a hard time with CMGC right now, as some of our folks are seeing that that's the best value for us, but that's a broad stroke, and it really depends on the project. We would rather see, we think that actually design bid build or construction VBS gives us our best value when we can do that, and that's borne itself out in a few recent projects. So I don't think we are looking at design build to replace CMGC, but we're just trying to not have every project be a CMGC project. Although we do deliver great projects that way, we do understand that we pay a premium for projects. So it's a great process for complicated projects or complicated end users, whatever the constraints may be. But but not design build. We're not looking at it to replace CMGC.
Okay.
This is a direct answer to the question.
Very good. Okay. I think, well, with that, I'll say we've covered everything. I don't see any new questions coming in. Jim, thank you for your time, and appreciate sharing the updates. We'll keep an eye on the websites and keep in contact with you And I just want to wrap up, and encourage everybody, if there's something to discuss with DFCM, personally, I've found the staff there very easy to approach, and they address any questions that we have quickly. So I've appreciated that. But as Jim and Matt said, if there's something that we need to address as a community, let's do it together. And it's just important to keep that in mind as we move forward in 2020 and 2021. Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.